What's up, everybody? It's Pikel with League of Items, and in this video, we are going to go through some of the best mid laners in the world. This is going to have more players than I have previously had on these lists because I think that mid lane is the deepest position in terms of elite talent. And the reason something like this happens is because everyone understands that mid is such an important position, and you need to have a solid mid laner in order to be competitive on the international stage for the most part. So quick disclaimer, all these guys are better than me. I understand that. This is for betting purposes. And when these guys go up against one another, I think about this sort of stuff where it's like, which mid laner is better, which one's going to have more influence over the entire map. But let's just get into it. So first up, we're going to start in the LCS. And I do think that this kind of plays out as the reality. I think that Abadage and Fudge I think that Abadage is the best mid laner in the LCS right now, because Bjergsen is kind of a question mark. Jensen's gone. Power of Evil is good, but not great. He's a very good mid laner, but compared to the other players we're going to be going through, just doesn't really count. The reason why I have Fudge on this list, even though I think Bjergsen and Power of Evil are probably better than him right now, is because I think that Fudge does have the upside to take the next step. The best case scenario for Fudge is that this is a Xiaohu type of move. Not that he'll become a Xiaohu level of player, but he's going to theoretically be able to perform just as well in the mid as he did in the top lane, which would make him one of the best solo laners in the LCS. And I think that there's a lot of champion overlap, so I'm not really too concerned about that. But that's basically where we're starting. Next up, we're going to the LEC, and I do think that these are the three best mid laners in the LEC. I think they're both better. I think they're all better than Abadage and Fudge. Caps, in my mind, is probably the best because we don't know how much of Perks' struggles last year could be contributed to his father passing and going to Cloud9. What kind of dysfunction was there within Cloud9? I think Sven really held back Cloud9 last year because of his limitations in how he could play the game. So it would be nice to see Perks be the best mid laner in the LEC again, which I think is definitely within the range of outcomes. And then we have Larson. I think that Larson is for sure better than Humanoid. Somebody mentioned on one of my other videos that they thought I had Larson a little bit high, which I don't necessarily disagree with, because I was always a little bit lower on Larson than everyone else when Perks was in the LEC, because I do think there's a gap between Perks and Caps and Larson. So I get why you might question why this guy's on this list, but I do think he's also better than Abadage and Fudge, so that's the reason. I think that Fudge could be better than Larson. Caps and Perks, I think, might just be on a different level in terms of talent. The next two players that I'm going to talk about right now are the two mid laners that I'm probably the most hopeful for in regards to, can they make that next step and be an elite mid laner? So can they carry their team to Worlds, or are they going to be able to stand up against the other elite mid laners that are out there? And one of the names you're going to recognize and probably not be surprised by. The other one you might be surprised by, but the more I thought about it, the more I like this player. And I completely forgot that I had a high opinion of him by the end of last year, because he was making big strides as a legit player. And those two players are Zika and Cream. So Zika went from VG Gaming to BLG, I think, and now Zika is back in the LCK, which should be good because they're playing with King and Piosik, Deft, and Beryl on DRX, and I think that DRX is going to surprise a decent amount of people, because people forget how good Piosik was a few years ago, and I think a big reason why that's going to be possible is because Zika and Piosik together are going to be a surprisingly good mid-jungle duo. So I think that Zika has the upside of being an S-level player. There are a lot of players in the A tier that I think also have the talent required to be an S player, but just, for the past year or handful of years, there have really been a few mid laners that really stand out as being the best in the world. And I was responding to a comment the other day on my LCK video about Faker, and we'll get to that in a second. But I get that there's going to be a lot of contention around what I have in A and what I have in S. The last thing that I would say about Well, actually, let's just talk about Cream. So Cream, when OMG brought in Cream, they were like not playing that well. Not Cream, but OMG just wasn't playing that well in general. I think that Aki is okay, but not great. He has to go with like the crazy eyes or whatever. But in the bot lane, Abel and Cold, I think that they had Eric last year, right? So maybe this is just a bunch of pieces that are moving around, and I'm not sure if the rest of the team is going to be able to give Cream the opportunity to showcase himself as an elite mid laner. But there were a ton of insane performances last year where he was carrying the entire game. The team would draft around him, the other team would pick ban around him, and they understood how much of an impact he was going to have on the map and in the match if they didn't allocate a lot of resources to stopping him and holding him down. But even with that being said, he's like that type of mechanical the type of mechanical player that has extremely high upsides, and sometimes those players just don't pan out because their team isn't good enough or because they don't have good game sense. But that's the kind of thing that we're looking for, like a young mechanically gifted player that can take that next step and just be like a true world-class mid laner. So I think that both of these players are at least as good as the European mid laners, and I think that they both have the upside of being just like much better than the European mid laners. And I know that there's probably some Western apologists who are going to be upset with me for having like Zika above Caps, Perks, and Larson. But I think if they were honest with themselves and watched more League of Legends, they could start to differentiate between the players that are actually world class and the ones that are like at Worlds all the time because their region is weaker. So that's fine for that. We'll try to get through the next part a little faster because it's really tough to distinguish a lot of these players. There are just huge stylistic differences. So we have Scout, Doinb, Knight, BDD, Rookie, Xiaohu, and Faker. So all of these players at one point in their career were considered one of the best mid laners in the world. They're all like, if they are on your team, you have a legitimate chance to win Worlds because they have that upside. And this isn't in order. Like, I think if you had to move it around, I think that BDD is probably on the lower side of things here. I think that Scout's on the lower side of things here. Even though they just won Worlds, Viper is the reason that they won Worlds, in my opinion. He was the heart and soul of that team, and he allowed the rest of the team to look good. Faker, you can put him at the top. You can put him like anywhere in this tier. I don't really mind. Like, he's undoubtedly one of the probably 3 best League of Legends players of all time. Doinb, even now, is like an incredible player. Won a world championship as the focal point of their team. And even last year, while FPX was struggling, there were times where Doinb could showcase like, I'm one of the best mid laners in the world, and his like deep understanding of the game results in just like crazy positions on the map. He's not always necessarily on carry champions, but he is like the best version of like, well, actually maybe Showmaker is, but the Niski humanoid style player, Doinb and Showmaker are that on steroids. Knight is another player who's in like the mechanical style of League of Legends and plays a lot of really aggressive champions. He kind of disappointed last year because everybody wanted to crown him as the best mid laner in the world. Showmaker and Chovy are probably a little bit better than him right now, but I think that Knight definitely has that talent. So if we were going just talent alone, he's probably at the top of this tier. Xiaohu making the transition into top lane was incredible. I do think that we have to give him props as being one of the best solo laners in the world, regardless of playing top or mid, because he has also demonstrated a deep understanding of the game by being able to pick another role up so fast. Rookie basically won Invictus Gaming a world championship. Him and the Shy were great, and a lot of these players are older, were legitimately great at one point. Not older, let me rephrase that. They've been around for a long time. They're veterans. And that's the funny thing about this is a lot of these players are roughly the same age as the Western players who we probably think, oh, well, that Western player hasn't been playing professionally as long. They must be younger than, Rookie or the Shy. And in reality, they're like the same age. And these guys have talent levels that are up here, and the Western players are down here. So it's just funny how that works out. But, maybe BDD doesn't belong on this list, but I think if you took BDD and put him into the West, he would instantly be the best mid laner in the world. Or not the best mid laner in that region. And then Obviously, the final two are Showmaker and Chovy. And one thing you might notice about this list is they're almost all Korean. And even though the LPL has been very strong the past couple of years, the best players from the LPL have generally been Korean. And it's not a super important distinction to make, but I just think that when we talk about the LPL LCK stuff, a lot of the time it's lost in that conversation that Korea is really the reason why League of Legends has hit this level, is because of the insane quality of players churned out in Korea. So Showmaker and Chovy are a little bit different. Chovy a lot of the time has to play champions that are more team oriented, and I think that's either a limitation of coaching or it could potentially just be a limitation of Chovy being able to influence the draft and influence what their coaches decide to do with the game. But in the perfect world, if like Chovy and Showmaker swap teams, I think that Damwon really wouldn't lose a beat because Chovy can play at an incredibly high level. So this is generally how I see things. I think that there are a lot of players in the A tier who were in the S tier at one point or could still be in the S tier. And this is the most important thing I could say about this is that the reason why this kind of thing is important for betting is because you need to think of quality and talent before you think about form. Because you could go on like a 2 or 3 game losing streak and you look like shit because you lost to a bad team or something like that, or you gave up a bunch of deaths, and it just looks really bad. It's just one game. And for me, it's always more important to focus on the upside of a player, the ceiling of a player, because that's really where you see these players shine. And that's why I don't feel so bad about including like the LEC players, because in the right matchup, in some of these games, they look absolutely insane. And I know that people want to put a high value on that. And I love Caps. I love Perks. I think they're two incredible players that could compete all around the world. Like if they went to a different region, I think they'd be league average at worst. But that's kind of the game we have to play. That's how we have to think about these things. So that's all I've got for you today. I'm going to do an 80 carry video. I got a couple more videos to pump out before all the action starts up again on the 10th. But that's all I've got for you right now. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.